We wanted to hop on here and just kind of like have like a light conversation just around like what we're both seeing from our vantage points, perspectives, and the fitness and wellness, otherwise space right now. Obviously, the shift, the shift in everything that we're seeing is pretty unprecedented, and we just want to talk about like kind of from a macro view, like what it looks like when we talk about what shifts we're seeing. We love to have people comment up or like talk and hear what they have to say. But we have like three major categories that these are all really going to fit into. And so before we dive into that though, and I'm gonna let Michael kind of take it away with those three categories and kind of how some of these questions are going to fit into all of this. I'll go and introduce myself. My name is Reed. I'm the founder of GearSharing. I help fitness studios do pop-up events. And so as everyone knows, the event space is, especially in fitness, is definitely changing as well. And so I'm excited to talk about that. And I'd love for Michael, if you want to introduce yourself and then just kind of dive into those three checkdowns here.
Sure. Michael Pottern, I'm the founder of Find My Zen. We are a digital platform helping connect local wellness community. Obviously, in these times of transition, we have also pivoted to support the community by shifting into supporting people finding things digitally. So we have both event calendars, a teacher directory, ways that people can both help themselves as their own individual brands, as well as for people to discover new and kind of curious things that are going on virtually now. The three things that we're going to be talking about are community, collaboration, and technology. We're going to break those out into future sessions where we'll get a little bit more granular and really get into the weeds with what's actually going on, what is the fundamentals that might be shifting, and where is this going to take us in the next 6 months, year, and longer. I think today we're just going to talk a little bit more about the shifting that we're seeing, just more on the macro level of how we're seeing people rise up to the occasion, supporting their community, and also getting a little uncomfortable and trying new things. So yeah, that's where I'd like to start the conversation is just hear a little bit about what you're seeing with social media. Obviously, that's a friend or foe for so many people, or has been until now, where people really are shifting into realizing that they are their own business and brands and that they need to be out there putting out content. So just want to see what's kind of going on in your world and what you're seeing.
Awesome. Yeah. And so, and I just want to make sure I heard the last kind of part of that question. Would you mind repeating that last bit?
Sure. So the question is about social media and just what trends that you're seeing and new
Yeah.
people jumping on there and supporting their own business.
Well, I mean, it's challenging, right? Because like, obviously, like if you look at like all the, regular gyms, they're switching right now to, online. And so, social media is like a big way of, them promoting that. And then it's like you have these online trainers who kind of have already, like, that's like what they're kind of bread and butter and what they do. And we're seeing a lot of, just creativity with like how people are piecing these together, creating all of these just kind of different mashups, whether it's something that they're doing, kind of internally, or they're finding different ways to have just like these different elements that they can bring into their like specific online workouts. And so I don't know, I think from just like the landscape of it, there's a lot of noise right now. And people, that's why I'm saying the creativity that I've seen overall has been, I think, the biggest differentiator, kind of creativity with just quality of the actual programming that they're putting together has been kind of this, not that it wasn't there before, but I feel like it's just becoming amplified by everything that's going on right now. Is that what you feel like you've seen as well?
Yeah, I definitely have seen creativity. I think I've seen co-creation is another big word that I keep using, I think, because this is the time where we can get a little bit more outside the box of what our normal channel might have been, in that we can virtually now pair up with people. We can do the old mashup of the 90s where you bring in two different bands together that normally wouldn't have any context and see what we can weave together, because that also then provides new threads of engagement, new opportunities for people to discover new modalities and really realize that wellness is 360. It's not just doing the same thing over and over. But I'd
Okay.
really also like to address that. I think that the authenticity is actually really coming through right now of the people that are in it for heart and the people that are in it to support. I think that, for so long we have looked at marketing and social media as these things of just promotional tools, or at least in other businesses that I've been in. And I think the wellness space has always had this kind of weird relationship to some degree where people didn't feel that they were being authentic. And now they're realizing that their practice, that they're teaching, and these things that they're offering, these tools, are really actually so needed right now, especially because we are in isolation and that we aren't able to do the normal routines that we're doing, and that our nervous systems are really actually out of whack. So I think that the heart of why people are showing up, that's what I'm noticing, is those are the people that are thriving right now, and I'm really appreciating how that's showing up.
I love that. And I think you're exactly right because like, I mean, anybody that I've talked to that's quarantined right now, which is, 95% of people, it seems like, are talking about like, okay, I can start off my day and it's like my day is going phenomenally, but then it just, goes like this emotionally. And so you're talking about your nervous system being off. And I think that now is definitely one of the most important times to just kind of like, continue to do those things that we know obviously help regulate ourselves.
Mhm.
And I'd like to piggyback on kind of what you're talking about with like how obviously people are kind of in this like fight or flight, system, like really like very frequently right now. It's like they can be fearful and then they can be like excited and then fearful and excited. I know probably all of us have experienced something like that. But to piggyback on what you were saying, like beyond just the workout or beyond just the routine, because we know that wellness extends beyond just moving or doing one isolated thing. We know it's like a whole collective of like social and mental and physical and spiritual and all of these things. So in staying in that same theme, how do we stay like that to take that, wellness part of it to the next level? How do we stay connected through this where it's not just like everybody's blowing up your, here's a Zoom thing that I probably would have never gone to or whatever. And you're like, okay, I'm being overstimulated right now. So how do we be mindful of the events that we are either putting on or attending, and how do we connect with people through those?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think that really being specific about what you're looking for as the end user, as somebody who's looking to, develop their own personal practice and plan throughout the day, this is the opportunity where you can find the best or those best people for you, because quite often it isn't just who has the most followings. It isn't just randomly who's at the corner of your street, which quite often is what people decide on what gym or studio that they go to is proximity. Now you actually get to self-select. So I'm really, appreciating that people are finding those right kind of mashups that actually work for them, because quite often that isn't the same as even my brother or sister or anybody else that might have a lot of similarities to me but is not myself. And so this is the time to start expanding. And then I also think as a practitioner or a facilitator, this is a meaningful time to really broaden your reach and try to get in front of new audiences, because I think those pathways are still going to remain even as the quarantine does lift up a little bit. When you find those right relationships, I think you can really go much deeper. So yeah, so I think it's just really being smart about what you're doing and developing a well-rounded action plan for the day-to-day. And I think as a facilitator, it seems to be a real unique opportunity to show up and think bigger and think outside the box. Going back to the creativity that you're seeing with the social medias and or the webinars and all the other kind of virtual offerings that we're seeing these days.
Mm-hmm.
How about
Well,
yourself?
Well, real quick, I like this wasn't even a question that I had even thought about before, but I think it fits really well into what you were talking about. It's like we're becoming innovative, we're being creative, we're thinking outside the box, and you're talking about like accessing different audiences that maybe you just wouldn't have before. Can you like give us an example of what that could look like, where we can explore those things, but we don't get caught in the weeds of trying to be everything to everyone, like where those things can kind of work synergistically, right?
Sure. Well, I think that from what I've seen, again, I've been focusing more on movement, yoga, meditation, these types of spaces that, traditionally really do have this more in-person context that's layered in there, that people just go to a studio to do their yoga and things like that. Is one is actually creating a place afterwards or before that people can actually have a little conversation, so that it's not mandated for everybody to do, but it's an offering, it's an opportunity for you to discuss things with them and actually find out what is needed. I think quite often, because things were so back to back and people needed to actually use that space, that physical space, that you didn't have that availability to actually have drop-ins where you could go deeper and actually form longer lasting relationships, and also find out what people are wanting, and make sure that you're showing up and offering the best that you can for that audience, and what their current needs are. Because there's a lot of different things going on, different mental fitness and health issues that we're going to be seeing here soon, or that we're already seeing, as well as dietary and people just the wine, happy hours every day. I've heard all the different kind of context of what's actually happening. So now we're going to shift into some repattering as we just went through this all. So it's going to be interesting. And how about you, Woody? Very excited to hear what your thoughts are.
Will you repeat that
I just
question?
said, yeah, just tell me a little bit about what you're seeing.
What am I seeing as it relates to like what you were talking about?
Correct.
Yeah. Um, so I think you're absolutely right. What I'm seeing is kind of an evolution of like how the services are delivered. And what I mean by that is it can be like you can throw a a virtual event where you're plugging like several different locations, or you're like putting together some sort of like festival or something like that. And what I from talking with different events planners and talking with just different groups, it's tough to say like exactly, because we don't have all the info. Like, I mean, meaning like it's tough to say exactly what this is going to look like in a month and a half, because we don't have really complete information of like, okay, it's just going to switch and we're going to be back to normal, which is probably unlikely, but it's anybody's guess. And I think that this is actually a really good kind of a topic to pivot into this next thing, kind of question that I have, and I'd love to hear what you have to say as well. But my question was, what kind of changes do you think are happening right now in the short term? Do you think any of those changes are going to be just short term, or do you think that like there's going to be kind of this blended approach to like our in person slash being online and all of that? And do you like kind of inside of that, it's like, are there things that are only going to be short term, lived during this time, right? So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and then I can kind of bounce off of that.
Yeah, no. Well, I think the World Wide Web is more webbed than ever. I think that we are developing new palette, I guess is the best word to use, of how to use the technology to get our basic needs met: connection, movement, exercise, even thought provoking kind of topics to keep us curious, which I think is really important right now. Um, so I do see a more of a hybrid model that will, I think, emerge from this. I think that it would be foolish to say that we're not going to now have some component that wasn't existing before that's going to stay after. So say it's just going to go back I don't think anybody that I know is thinking that, where that pendulum's going to swing and how far back it's going to swing. That's going to be a curious thing. But I definitely am with the partners that we have, and I'm talking to on the regular basis. I'm definitely wanting people to do the best that they can to create some scaffolding that allows for the digital space to continue to merge and to grow, because I think it can be a beautiful opportunity and another venue and an offering that they can continue to work with and actually grow outside of their own just proximity location, city location, national location. Now that we're having global conversations, I think that that's going to be really meaningful. So I also am, I would say, still very aware though that people want to be in connection in real life. So I think the
Yeah.
better that we can do right now, as I said, of just kind of weaving in those opportunities for conversation, then that is at least where we can kind of at least meet in the middle for now. Yeah. How about you,
I,
Ray?
I like that a lot, because I think that, like, just echoing what you said, it's like people are kind of putting together like their scaffolding for, and like kind of their foundation for, um, really, the way I think of it, I'm sure you've heard of, like, doing deep work, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like doing deep work is like focusing on like the depth of those things. And I feel like the deep work is what people are having an opportunity to do right now. And so when you think about like, okay, could I be building a content library and doing X, Y, and Z? Could I maybe take a little extra time? And that person that I was trying to get coffee with before all of this stuff set in, I would have never met with up before or whatever, but like we were going to talk about that thing and how can we circle back to like doing those things. And just, I think people are really putting in kind of this foundational work of putting those right partners in place, putting that scaffolding in place, to echo what you were saying. And the thing that I'm like most curious about, which actually leads into my next question, is just like thinking about like if brick and mortar will ever be exactly the same again. And if he, and well, I'll pause on that part of it. But for now, like, is brick and mortar, do you think brick and mortar is going to be a continual thing that we see? Or because like right now it's like people are, I think, realizing that like, hey, if I can go online or find other ways to deliver my services in the short term, and as a business, my biggest liability is that $15,000 a month lease that I'm having to pay or whatever it is, then I think people are realizing that's like their biggest liability, and that's like something that isn't in their direct control. So what do you think about virtual versus like the brick and mortar, wellness and fitness facility as we know it?
There we go. Um, yeah, I think that we're still kind of in that same conundrum of not having enough data yet. I do say that I see the wellness as still thriving in that connection way of in person. But as you and I both know, I think that people are wanting variety. People are wanting to experience wellness and fitness in different areas, locations, outdoors, indoors, all those things. So I think that that is something to be very aware of as we do continue to move into these new, hybrid places, what that could really look like.
Hmm. For sure, for sure. And piggybacking off of just kind of like that conversation, as far as events go, because I know that with Find My Zen, I don't know if you mentioned this before, but Find My Zen curates like 7,000 events across the U.S. every single year, and with in looking at kind of fitness and wellness from kind of an event or experience standpoint, I mean, I think you and I both think of it as an experience because obviously you can create that for somebody, like people are going to keep coming back. Do you think that events will return back to normal, or will also have a hybrid model with that, because that's usually a little bit more large scale? Do you think that events will like we'll get more creative with how we put them on, or we'll have this blended model for that as well? Or do you think that's only limited to just individual classes?
No, I mean, I think that you have virtual festivals going on. I think that you're going to have, again, more weaving in of different ways that even people can then, digitally come and be a part of experiences. I think that there is going to be a bigger shift in that. And I think we'll kind of get into that more when we get into our actual sections of conversation around technology and community and co-creation. So I think that those are, that's a weaving of, I think the topics that we'll kind of explore a little bit deeper. But I think just, kind of at a high level right now, yeah, I do see it as kind of a weaving of things that will not only be for the individuals, it will be for the businesses, as well as the brands, as well as just the community, the festivals, and that whole ecosystem. I know Hanuman is going to be doing some digital stuff this year. Yoga Festival, I know Burning Man is going to be doing digital programming this year. So there's going to be a lot more of that, and that's going to be accepted as a norm moving forward.
Hmm. I couldn't agree more. And I think that we're going to get more creative with how people can feel connected to that community. And I think that that's, kind of the overarching theme is like, how do you continue to foster your own community? How do you continue to create that sense of connection, like through events and things like that? So like a really good example of this, I was talking with someone about this yesterday or the day before, is like, think about like a Spartan race or like a 5K or something like that. There's maybe certain times when you receive like a packet in the mail where you got your bib, you got whatever it is you need for like registration, things like that. Maybe you got like a t-shirt and some swag, and maybe it came in something that you could reuse, some sort of bag or something like that. That's obviously a really cool way for people to like, have whatever maybe equipment or whatever, like, is going to preface that event that's going on, and B, it's going to make them feel like they're like connected and experiencing the same thing that like everybody else is through that. And then I guess C, that could be a phenomenal opportunity for both collaboration as well as like, how do you create an event in this day and age and still have kind of this asset, if you will, to sell into, where you're like, okay, I can still pick up a sponsorship by like maybe repackaging it in a different way, and just kind of help recreate that same experience, to the best that we can,
Mm-hmm.
in this new landscape that we're in.
Yeah, no, it's going to be exciting, and I think it'll be really interesting. I think you seeing what's going on the fitness side, and Find My Zen really being a part of more the mindful wellness side. I think it's going to be interesting how we learn from each other, both the spaces and you and I. And I'm really curious to go further and dive into those three categories on our future calls.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm
Perfect.
excited for like to bring other people in on this conversation, hear what they have to say as well.
Yeah, no, I think there's, again, co-creation and collaboration is what the name of the game is right now. And I'm really inspired to see how that word competition is really dissolving into, being supportive in both our own growth and our own business success, as well as the success of our community and, just the industry itself, as we know, can use a little love right now.
Awesome. Sounds good,
Perfect.
man. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Reed.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.